If the goal is hypertrophy when performing the bench press, should I arch at all? You don't need to get the insane powerlifting arches, but a moderate arch helped me a lot to avoid shoulder pain and to activate my lats. Try it and see how it feels. Arching isn't only a powerlifting thing. It is also shoulder protective, and whole body tension is important for big lifts. And if the goal is hypertrophy, presumably you're doing more for your pecs than just bench press. So you don't need to hyper-optimize this singular lift when you've got 2 or 3 or more other lifts with other ROMs and advantages. Arching isn't there to make the lift easier, even though it might. It's just like bracing for squats or deads. You want your body braced for the lift as a general rule. An arch allows you to really pack your shoulders and lats back and down. Then when you inhale, your chest is super high and most of the tension is on the chest rather than the shoulders when you bring the bar down. You know what's bad for hypertrophy? Injuries. Learn to bench properly with an arch. Tucked elbows. Leg drive. Absolutely should arch and retract your scapula. Back flat is just bad form. The decrease in range of motion is outweighed by the ability to overload and injury prevention. Also, when you arch, you create a slight decline, and IIRC research still shows decline to the best for overall chest development. A lot of the guys here at college I work out with seem to think that arching is terrible. But it just feels natural and the right way to do it. They follow that thinking with every exercise since they think it isolates it, but it seems to isolate injuries as well. Arch enough to maintain the tension and positioning, not enough to look like a contortionist. Damn. What a coincidence that you asked this now. Because I hurt myself really badly 2 pushes ago and finally feel like I have a good grip on my bench form after 6 months. I feel like having the arch significantly reduces the load in correct parts of my body and lowers my chance of being hurt, which in turn supports hypertrophy. I was only benching a plate, by the way. The injury I sustained was reminiscent to waking up the morning after having slept in a bad position all night. But it lasted for a few days more. Could have been worse if I didn't call it quits. IMO. Arching also allows a larger number of pec major fibers to be more active, placing you in a slight decline. IMO. If your goal is hypertrophy, don't flat bench. Yep, arch it is safer that way. And #X200B. If the goal is hypertrophy, I think there are better exercises than barbell flat bench. You could go dumbbell flat bench with your feet off the ground and incorporate some bands to max chest crossover for starters. Don't get me wrong, I love BB flat bench press. But outside of pressing big numbers, it is WAAAAY better for developing base strength and hypertrophy. You will get strong on bench, just like deadlift and squat, using good form, which will allow you to continue working out injury-free. Barbell bench press will eat your shoulders and expose your imbalances pretty quickly without good form, just like all the power lifts. I do a little arch when going for hypertrophy. What I do is a little power buoda take where I lay down on my lats, then proceed to unload the bar while my butt is lifted. As soon as the bar is off the rack, I put my butt down and have a little arch, which helps me personally to have more lat engagement and more stable lift. The arch and tension are all good cues to have the body in the right place. The benefit is the exercise is safer in general, which is why you can lift more. In general, if you can recruit more muscles for compound lifts, it's more beneficial overall. Arching a bit actually hits the pecs more and you can get more stretch on them. Also, Some arch is good for stability, tightness and shoulder health. Always arch. You should bench like a power lifter. The arch keeps a tight setup and it's easier to keep your elbows in. Keeping your elbows in is not only better for your shoulders, it also activates your pecs more. If I remember right, Jeff Nippard had a video about growing your chest where he said there are studies showing that the size of your chest is directly proportional with how much you can bench. Also, arching has its shoulder health benefits. While arching, you are depressing your scapula and engaging the lats way easier. This way the shoulders fall. I just imagine as falling lol, in a position that protects them, thus allowing you to bench bigger and safer. So I think the answer to this would be to arch to a comfortable position where you know it's best for you and focus on other aspects such as exercise planning and grip position on the bar or with the dumbbells. Yep, this might have been already mentioned in the comments. I haven't took the time to read all of them, but I thought it was worth mentioning. Yes, it doesn't have to be anything over the top. Even a slight arch is better than a flat back. Clearly an unpopular opinion here, but it doesn't matter whatsoever with regards to hypertrophy. There's no evidence that arching makes it safer either. Although resistance training is already an exceedingly safe activity anyways. Comp bench, flat back bench, feet up, wide grip, long paused, whatever. Not gonna be significant differences, so just do whatever you prefer and what fits within your fatigue management scheme. As someone who listed to an old guy in the gym about how arching is cheating, please use a moderate arch. I've had better results with incline press and flies. If your goal is hypertrophy, you shouldn't bench shots fired. You need to have somewhat of an arch. When you pinch your shoulder blades together, you will inherently have some arch. This allows you to take the load off of your shoulders and arms, and it focuses on your chest, which allows you to pick up more weight with your chest, which in turn will gain you more pec hypertrophy. For someone who was quite new to lifting and still am a bit, I feel that a normal comfortable arch makes a huge difference. From when I had my back flat to when I started arching, I can lift so much more, and the balance of the bar is a lot easier. In a sense of hypertrophy, I feel that when I arch my back, I remove most of the triceps work that I had when I didn't. When your bar touches your chest, with the position of no arch, you need more triceps to get kind of under the bar. So it might just be less work in the chest than compared to an arch. Plus, if you look at it in a chest fly scenario, your chest pops out in order to have the cables next to your body or behind it. So I think you have a bit more stretch on the chest than if you had a straight back. Yes, always. A normal arch only benefits your chest training in a number of ways. Some people can get into an exaggerated arch that significantly lowers the range of motion, but it's unlikely you're even able to do that. IMO zero arch is basically neutral mode. If you watch old Arnold videos, he would sometimes do press flies not only with no arch, but would lift his legs off the floor entirely, so you have to work harder for your stability, and you have a much greater ROM. I agree with your thought process. If you're really looking to sculpt your upper body rather than hit a new PB, then I suspect the less arch the better. I'd guess it's considerably riskier at heavier loads, but perhaps less so at the 60 to 70 PCT1 room you would be loading for a high-volume workout, as is the case with bodybuilding over strength training. But, as others have suggested, it all comes down to personal preference and individual results. Personally, I like to do knees up chest presses, fly, then switch to hollow hold and do lat pullovers without ever putting the weight down. Can do this with barbell or dumbbells. Asterisk edit. Fix typos. Slight arch yes. Keep your butt planted and your shoulder blades pinned to the bench. Arching helps work more of the pecs better, because most of the muscle fibers point downward. As you can see here, https i.imager.com/zs1lhmn.jpg. So they work best when the arm travels downward, rather than perpendicular to your body. This is partly why you can lift more when arching. If you arch, you can carry more weight and impress the other hot guys in the gym. Win-win IMO. When we say arch, we mean enough space for a flat hand or two. Not a powerlifting arch. Arching moves the load onto your lats. The degree to which you arch and your own anatomy will determine just how much of the burden is shifted. The bench is honestly not a great chest builder for some people. From personal experience powerlifting, I was benching 275 for doubles at a body weight of roughly 180. Hardly elite level, but a pretty good bench press for my weight class at the time. However, if you looked at me, you wouldn't have ever guessed I lifted. I was lanky AF, being 6'2". I recently swapped to Metallic Adpar's routine from the weightlifting subreddit, and in less than 3 months my chest and arms made more gains than 7 years of all-pro and starting strength, both of which rely on bench as the only chest-building exercise. I've read a lot of these comments and all I can say is that I'm glad that I do what I do. Where to start? The arch. The natural arch of the lumbar is important, especially if you're using your lower body to aid in your lift. You can also isolate the upper body by doing a dead bug variation with the lower body, which forces you to stabilize with the upper body alone. Moving up to the shoulders. Arching the back also changes the angle of the rib cage in relation to the bar. If you notice, some powerlifters have such an arch that it looks like they're decline bench pressing. Also, if you feel any pain in your shoulders, you're doing it wrong. The scapula are supposed to protract when you do any horizontal push movement. It's basic kinesiology. Go read any actual mobility text. If you get AC joint pain in the shoulders, what you're doing is abducting and elevating beyond the safe limit. You can fix this by imagining that you're squeezing newspapers in between your armpits as you drive. Anyway, TLDR, for hypertrophy, you should be isolating the muscles you want to increase volume in. Find ways to put more pressure on the chest, such as lifting the legs off the floor. If the goal is hypertrophy, the gains don't get pulled on the bench but rather in the control and overwork that happens after the main lift. Use heavy lifts for a starter, activates the central nervous systems, fills the muscle with blood like a motherfucker and gets the muscle tired, making overloading easier with the following isolation exercises. Given that role, the arch helps lift heavier, and helps you do the above points better. But you don't have to go overboard or fixate as much as a powerlifter on the form, just stay safe and focus on the mind-muscle connection. Arnold put his feet on the bench for what reason? Arching and driving with your legs is beneficial. Arching like a mad contortionist so you only have to move the bar 2 inches is not. https u2.be/hf_5aegis2m. In terms of hypertrophy, size is the prize. Right. That being said, I would recommend against an exaggerated arch. Slight arch. Yes. Engage the lasts and pack the shoulders. Get stiff, but give the bench press a chance to work the muscles you want to grow, which I would imagine is the old pectorals. If you were going for a PR on bench and you wanted to fucking crush weight, hell yeah, break that back, yo. But Hypertrophy doesn't care if it's 95 pounds or 315 pounds. It's about contraction and isolation. Heavier weight may not make much difference. Keep the weight light, relatively. Keep the reps slow. Keep the form tight. Focus and control for hypertrophy. I think it is a great idea to at least experiment with a flat back. You might want to try the floor press and use zero arch for it. It can definitely help you gain muscle and also help your raw pushing strength, as opposed to your ability to perform well at the specific activity of the bench press. Beware of the hyperextension. Herniated discs will pull you for a year from lifting and you'll have emergency surgery. It may not come today or tomorrow, but it adds up. It's a maybe don't bench if you want hypertrophy. If you don't get the results you want from it, then consider trying. Lean forward dips to target chest. Dumbbell press. Weighted push-ups if you know how to use your chest muscles and not let triceps to take over. Ignore the clickbaity title, but this is an excellent video that came out recently that addressed this topic. https youtube.be/5nngmpu-pde. Just a slight arch where you can put your hand underneath your back is enough for hypertrophy. Benching. Also, don't bother using leg drive because all that does is allow you to move heavier weight without actually working the target muscles.